The highway was supposed to be a shortcut. That was the lie everyone told themselves. A thin ribbon of asphalt cutting through miles of nothing, promising shaved minutes and empty lanes, promising that if you just kept your foot steady and your eyes forward, you'd arrive sooner and untouched. It was a road people trusted because it looked simple. 2 lines. Endless dark. No turns sharp enough to demand fear. No signs warning you that some places are not meant to be crossed quickly or alone. I learned the truth about that highway the night my fuel gauge dipped below empty and kept going anyway. The clock on the dashboard glowed 2:17 a.m., the numbers sharp and cold, like they were carved instead of lit. The radio had long ago given up on music and settled into a low hiss that rose and fell like breathing. I was driving back from a job interview that had gone badly, my head full of rehearsed answers I wished I'd said and silences that felt heavier than words. The city lights had vanished an hour earlier. Since then, there had been nothing but darkness and the faint white stretch of road ahead. I told myself I could make it to the next station. The map said there was one. The map also said this stretch of highway was straight and safe, that it cut cleanly through the countryside without trouble. Maps don't show what hunts. The first sign that something was wrong came as a sound, not a sight. A dull thump, felt more than heard, like a fist knocking once against the underside of the car. I tightened my grip on the wheel and checked the mirrors. Nothing behind me. Nothing in the road ahead except the familiar white lines and the way the headlights tunneled through the dark. Another thump followed, closer this time, sharper. I eased off the accelerator, heart beginning to pound, listening for the telltale rattle of something loose or broken. When I slowed, the sound stopped. When I sped up again, it returned, steady now, rhythmic, as if something were matching my pace. I pulled over. The shoulder was narrow, the gravel crunching loudly as I stopped. The silence that followed was immediate and deep, the kind that presses against your ears. I stepped out, the night air cold enough to sting. I crouched, ran my hand along the tires, checked the undercarriage with my phone's flashlight. Nothing. No damage. No animal struck. No explanation. That was when I noticed the footprints. They were faint, half erased by passing tires, but unmistakable once you saw them. Bare feet. Adult-sized. Leading from the brush at the edge of the road straight toward where my car now sat. They stopped a few feet from the rear bumper. I stood up slowly, scanning the darkness beyond the reach of my headlights. The beam cut a hard line, revealing weeds, a sagging fence, and nothing else. No movement. No sound. Just the feeling of being watched, heavy and intimate, like someone standing too close behind you. I got back in the car and locked the doors. When I pulled back onto the highway, the footprints vanished into the night behind me, but the sense of presence did not. It rode with me, coiled in the passenger seat, pressed into the empty space of the back. The fuel light came on 10 minutes later. I cursed under my breath, eyes flicking to the gauge, then back to the road. The map had promised a station. It had to be close. I turned the radio up, then off again when the static began to sound like whispers layered just beneath the noise. That was when I saw the man standing in the road. He appeared suddenly, illuminated by the headlights, tall and thin, his arm raised in a clear signal to stop. I slammed the brakes, tires screaming, the car skidding before coming to a halt a few yards away from him. He didn't flinch. Up close, something about him felt wrong. His clothes were old, hanging loosely, as if they'd been worn thin by years of use. His face was shadowed, features indistinct. He lowered his arm and took a step toward the car. I cracked the window, just enough to speak. "Are you okay?" He leaned down and the smell hit me first. Earthy, metallic, like damp soil mixed with rust. His eyes caught the light then, reflecting it back too brightly, too flat. "Car broke down," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Need a ride?" Every instinct screamed at me to drive away. The fuel light blinked insistently, a reminder of my own vulnerability. The road behind me was empty. The road ahead stretched on, dark and uncertain. "I can call for help," I said. "What's your number?" He smiled. The expression didn't reach his eyes. No signal out here. As if on cue, my phone screen flickered and went dark. His hand came up, resting on the window. I noticed then that his fingers were stained dark at the tips, the nails cracked and thick. He tapped once, softly. The same rhythm as the thumping beneath my car earlier.
"Please," he said.
"It's dangerous to be out here alone." The words landed like a threat. I didn't answer. I put the car in gear and hit the accelerator. Gravel sprayed as I swerved around him, heart pounding so hard it blurred my vision. In the rearview mirror, I saw him turn slowly, watching me go, his smile widening as the distance grew. I didn't stop again until the engine sputtered and died. The car rolled to a halt in the middle of the highway, silence crashing down around me. I sat there, hands shaking, staring at the dark road ahead. No lights, no buildings, no sign of the station that was supposed to be here. I locked the doors and waited. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. I tried the phone again.
Dead.
I considered getting out, walking, doing anything to escape the suffocating stillness. Then I heard footsteps. They came from behind the car, slow and deliberate, crunching softly on gravel. Another set joined them. Then another. I pressed myself back against the seat, breath shallow, listening as the sounds circled the vehicle. A shape passed through the headlights, then another. Faces appeared briefly at the windows, pale and curious, eyes reflecting the light just like the man's had. Hands pressed against the glass, leaving smudges that looked disturbingly like streaks of dried blood. Someone laughed. It was low and pleased, the sound of a successful hunt. I don't remember deciding to run. I just remember the door flying open, my feet hitting the pavement, and the sudden chaos of movement and sound as I sprinted into the darkness on the opposite side of the road. Shouts followed me, sharp and excited. I didn't look back. The brush tore at my clothes and skin as I ran, branches snapping, the ground uneven beneath my feet. The brush tore at my clothes and skin as I ran, branches snapping, the ground uneven beneath my feet. The highway disappeared behind me, swallowed by trees. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs threatened to give out, then I kept running anyway. I stumbled into a clearing lit by the faint glow of a single porch light. The house looked abandoned at first glance, paint peeling, windows dark. I pounded on the door, desperation overriding fear. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door creaked open. An old woman stood there, her hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp and assessing. She took one look at my torn clothes, my bleeding hands, and pulled me inside without a word. She locked the door behind us and drew the curtains. "You shouldn't have been on the highway," she said quietly. "You know them?" I asked, voice shaking. She nodded. "Everyone does. They come out at night. Cars slow down. Cars stop. People disappear. Why doesn't anyone warn?" She cut me off with a sad smile. "Warnings don't help. People think they're smarter than the road." She let me stay until morning. At dawn, she drove me to the nearest town, dropping me off without ceremony. I asked her name. She didn't answer. The police took my statement. They searched the highway. They found my car, empty and undamaged. No footprints. No signs of struggle. They told me I was lucky.
They told me to get some rest.
I never drove that highway again. Years later, I read about a crash on the same stretch of road. A family gone missing. No bodies found. The article mentioned strange footprints near the wreck, quickly dismissed. That was the first encounter. The second story came to me from a trucker named Eli, told over coffee in a roadside diner where the lights were too bright and the windows too clean, as if brightness itself could keep the dark at bay. He had the look of a man who'd seen too much and slept too little. "I drive nights," he said, stirring his coffee without drinking it. "Less traffic. More money. You see things out there." He told me about a woman he'd seen hitchhiking on the highway, standing perfectly still at the edge of the road. He almost didn't stop. Almost.
"She looked wrong," he said.
Like she was waiting, not asking. But he stopped anyway. He said she climbed into the cab without a word, her movements stiff, her eyes never leaving the road ahead. She smelled like rain and iron. They drove in silence for miles. When he finally spoke, asking where she was headed, she turned to him and smiled. "That'll do," she said. Her hand went for the door handle, not to open it, but to hold it shut. The truck began to slow, the engine straining. Eli swore he hadn't touched the brakes. "That's when I saw them," he said, voice dropping. "Standing in the road ahead, waiting." He fought the wheel, fought the pedals, panic flooding his chest. The woman laughed, a sound too big for her mouth, and leaned closer. "They're hungry," she whispered. He did the only thing he could think of. He opened his own door and jumped. He woke up in a ditch with a broken arm and a concussion. When he came to, the truck was gone. The police found it days later, abandoned miles away, the cab smeared with dark handprints. "They didn't take me," he said softly. "They wanted the truck." The third encounter is the hardest to tell because it happened to someone I loved. My younger cousin Maya was driving home from college, taking the highway to save time. She texted me when she left. She never arrived. They found her car 2 days later, parked neatly on the shoulder, doors open, keys still in the ignition. No sign of a struggle. No footprints. The official story said she must have wandered off, disoriented. But I know better. I drove that highway one last time, years after my own escape, chasing answers I knew I wouldn't find. I went during the day, when the sun made the road look harmless and flat. Even then, I felt it, the tension in the air, the sense of being watched. I pulled over where they'd found Maya's car. The grass was flattened, the ground worn, as if many people had stood there over time. I walked a few steps into the brush and found something half buried beneath leaves and dirt. A bracelet. Maya's bracelet. As I stood there, holding it, I heard the faint sound of footsteps behind me. I didn't turn around. The highway is their hunting ground. It always has been. And as long as people believe roads are just roads, as long as they trust the promise of shortcuts and empty lanes, it always will be. I left the bracelet where it was and walked back to my car. As I drove away, I checked the mirrors constantly, expecting to see figures standing just beyond the reach of the light. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving on safer roads, I still hear that rhythmic tapping, matching my speed. And I never slow down.